How did surf rock become one of the biggest underground and alternative genres in all of Australia? Well, find out if you watch this video. Hey everyone, Liam from Solitude here, and in this video today, I'm going to take you through the rise of surf/garage rock in Australia. As I mentioned before, it has essentially become one of the biggest genres in all of Australia right now, especially in the alternative music scene and within live local rock music venues. So surf rock has been around for a long time, obviously, dating all the way back to the origins of some of the earliest rock and roll music. Of course, some of the biggest names being like the Beach Boys, and some really famous songs like Mizzaloo. And of course in Australia we even had the Bomboro. Surf music kind of died down pretty quickly and stayed dead for a long time, but maybe it had a little bit of a revival, you would say, in the 80s in Australia with a band called Australian Crawl, delving into surf and beach culture a little bit with their pub rock sound. But it has really gone through a massive revival in the past 10 years, probably from around 2013 to 2024 as I'm making this video, and I'm going to delve into how I think that happened. So dating back to around 2010, rock music in Australia was in a funny place. Guitars and drums were kind of dying down and we weren't seeing as much rock music on the mainstream charts. We started seeing a rise in indie pop, especially with bands like San Cisco and Architecture in Helsinki. There are a couple that come to mind. Why do stars fall at night? They were still using guitars and drums, but they were just much lighter and easier on the ear. This suddenly became the new flavor of rock music, I guess you could say, that people wanted to play, and it stayed like that for a few years. Then came along Violent Soho, who revived their career in Australia with the release of the single Covered in Chrome. Now, of course, Violent Soho are not a surf rock band, but I believe they played a pivotal part in ushering in the revival of guitar music generally in this country. As I said before, for a few years we really had not heard anything pop into the Hottest 100 or the charts that was heavily influenced by distorted guitars, bombastic drums, and things like that. And as documented in another video I made a few weeks back, they brought with them some more bands to break through with success in the alternative Australian scene. This included the likes of DZ Death Rays and June Rats, of course being fellow Brisbane bands. Now it was these two bands that I believe that played a pivotal role in ushering in this surf garage boom. Number one, because these two bands played something a little bit more similar to the sound that the surf rock bands are playing now. But also number two, they showed that it could be done with just two band members and a minimalistic approach to their music. One song in particular I would say would be a big influence on the modern surf rock sound that was put out by June Rats, and that was Red Light, Green Light. Red light, wanna go, green light, want to go, green light, wanna go, red light, want to go. Now at the time this wasn't a huge song, but it did have quite a lot of success in the underground, especially in Brisbane. And with Violent Soho really kind of leading the way and these two bands following in their slipstream, we saw the emergence of more bands wanting to try their hand again at playing guitars and drums in their garages. Now I'm not saying that Violent Soho's songs were complex or their music was that out there, but the stuff that June Rats in particular were playing was a little bit more easier to achieve. And I think that's why they became one of the more influential bands when it comes to this sound. So it was much easier to just get together with two people, one on drums, one on guitar, play some simple bar chords, and sing something simple about, how your day's going, being at the beach, smoking some cones, getting drunk or whatever. And this is what we saw a lot of bands doing around the year 2015, I would say. A lot of bands were taking to this formula, using in particular Jazzmaster or Jaguar guitars, lots of reverb and very light distortion, and usually keeping the bar chords in their songs super simple with catchy melodies and lyrics. We saw the emergence of Hockey Dad, who came up through the Triple J Unearthed High competition. using this two-person approach. Skeggs were another band that emerged here and probably got a little bit more popular than Hockey Dad with their minimalistic approach, and maybe lent a little bit more towards the garage direction, which I will talk about shortly.
Cut my hair 'cause it's too long. Dye it black 'cause it's too blonde.
Another band that followed in these footsteps was Good Dougs, who had a bit of a tragic demise because of some personal issues within the band, but they were getting super popular and sounded pretty similar. I know these three bands in particular all claim to be quite influenced by a couple of other bands who weren't Australian, Waves and Best Coast too, so shout out to those bands. Where I come from here in Perth, we also saw the emergence of a local band called Spacey Jane, who put out their first EP with a lot of success here locally after playing show upon show in pretty much every venue in Perth. Now I know what you're thinking, well, Spacey Jane, they're one of the biggest bands in Australia now, and I wouldn't call them surf rock, but their first EP, I certainly felt like sounded very similar to the other surf rock stuff that was out there. They've obviously gone on to hone their sound a little bit more and move a little bit more towards that kind of glossy indie pop direction, and they've become super influential in their own right now. But at the time, they were quite a big surf rock band. With this surf rock culture and Skeggs' popularity, we obviously saw the offshoot going a little bit more towards this kind of garage direction. And this was similar in that it used a minimalistic approach and simple bar chords, simple but catchy lyrics, but usually a little bit more harder edge on the guitars, and mostly a bit of a thicker Australian accent on the singing. Some people have been calling this kind of like bogan Aussie pub rock, but I just simply call it garage rock. We've seen the likes of the Terrys, Betty Rays, the Chats, Amel and the Sniffers, and Bad Dreams really rise up in the last 5 or 6 years in particular, and are flying the flag pretty hard for Australian rock music generally now. And once again, in just the last couple of years, we've seen some more bands emerging from that Hockey Dad influence, the likes of Old Mervs, the Ryans, but this is now essentially the most popular indie rock genre in Australia right now, and it's just dominating Triple J and dominating Spotify, and also dominating the local scenes. Every time I go to see a local live music show, it feels like here in Perth at least, every second band is trying to do like this kind of surfy, garagey thing, which is cool, and it's just a sign of how popular, minimalistic, and how simple it is to write this music. And ultimately, I think it's been a great thing for Australian music generally over the past 10 years. Because there was a time 15 years ago when I was really worried for rock music generally in this country, and thankfully, with the breakthrough success of Violent Soho, ushering the way for the likes of DZ Death Rays, June Rats, Skeggs, Hockey Dad, and others, it's now meant that we have so much Australian rock music to digest. Are there any other surf/garage rock bands that I didn't mention that you think are worth checking out? Comment them below. Thanks for checking out this video, everyone. If you like what you saw here, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.